Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in this world. My name's Jade, and this is The Interview. And today on the show we have Dan, the Lonely Rocker. So grab your rockin' ankles and get ready to rock, baby, because it's all happening today. Sponsored by DistroKid. We're going to kick off with When's Dropsy. That's ouch. Welcome to the show, my friends. You doing okay out there? I hope you're doing okay. It's Friday morning here in Australia, Thursday for the rest of you. Catch up, will ya? What's going on? My name's Jade, and this is The Interview. We have a fantastic guest on today. Pumped for the weekend. We got some cool stuff also coming up tomorrow. Let me tell you about this before we jump in. The Music for Life charity album that we have been running for a few years now. We've done 2 of them, yeah? So we get you guys to create songs, send them to us. We release them on an album through Bandcamp to raise money for kids with cancer. We've done 2 of them. We did one for the UK where you all got involved. Then this year we did one for Canada. We raised a shitload of money. We're going to tell you about it all tomorrow here on the show as we do the Music for Life United States of America launch party, where we're going to once again ask you guys to submit your songs, and we're going to raise some money for kids with cancer in the US. That's tomorrow, this time exactly. So set your calendar, come over for the launch party. Me and Russ will be up here telling you all about it, how to submit your songs, how to get involved. It's just a great community thing that we do. I'm sure you will agree. Also, I need to tell you, today's show is, of course, sponsored by our good friends at DistroKid. You can release all your music for the ridiculously low price of $24.99 annually. Unlimited songs, unlimited lyrics, Spotify checkmark, creative royalty splits, tools, mobile apps, all that jazz. And if you use my code that's up the top, Thomas has just posted it, bang, right there in the chat. distrokid.com/VIP/shade sale. You'll get 7% off your first year so you can continue to keep releasing music. I got charged my plan this year, which is the ultimate plan because I have too many bands. And boy, I didn't expect it to, thanks to our illustrious tariffs, it turned out to be $150. Australian coin is worth nothing. But you should be releasing your music, and DistroKid is the place to go. And once again, thank you, DistroKid. You know what I'm going to do, DistroKid? I love you, DistroKid. Thank you for sponsoring the show as always. Everyone good in the chat? You know the deal. I'll give you a shout out in the next 25 minutes after we play our second song for today. But now I came across this young, talented artist on Mike Enjo's Creative Source channel. He was doing this Fix Your Mix show for a little while there and had a whole bunch of us roll up and help you guys fix your mix. And I came across Dan, the Lonely Rocker, and was like, who is this Dan? Let me go over to his channel and hook up and set a subscription. And now here we are a couple of years later, and whenever one of his video drops, I'm there. Like a fly on shit. There's my first word. Got it out. We got the first swear for the day, so we're all happening. So let's bring him on. He's an absolutely super talented artist, fantastic production on his videos, killing it on YouTube. This is Dan, the Lonely Rocker. Everything lined up. Let's bring him on, get the applause ready. Yay! Hello, Dan.
I'm going to do this for the whole interview.
Hey.
I had nothing to do with that.
Welcome. Thank you for coming on. I'm always excited to have a super talented artist on the show like yourself. As I said in the beginning of the show, we met through Creative Source and Mike Enjo. And I'm just going to, let's get it out in the open. We've had Pete Johns on there. You've been on there. I've been on there. And we had, who else? I'm saving one for last. There's been, why can't I think? The Dutch guy. Why can't I think of his name? Has it been? He's been on there too.
Oh, Marlon? You're talking about Marlon?
Yeah. He's been on there too, I think. Yeah.
Ed was on there.
Ed as well.
Yeah.
And also somebody who we lost this year, really unfortunate, Ricky T. Man, just super talented dude and a massive loss. Memories, something to throw down that makes you happy that you knew Ricky?
Ricky and I, for two people that never met in person, he was definitely high on my list. As you know, with this YouTube world, we get the pleasure of meeting people across the spectrum of countries and around the world. Yeah. And Ricky came in pretty early in my channel. He accepted me into his the Home Recording Studio Zone, which is an amazing Facebook group. And most of the people here are probably already there. And he just accepted me. He liked what I was doing and he gave me a platform. He left comments on almost all my videos, and when we did those live streams with Mike, we sort of called ourselves the not very original, but the Three Amigos. But, we would do the live streams that would be like 2 hours, and then we'd be just chatting after the live stream for like 2-3 hours or more. Sometimes afterwards, we just got along so well. And, I'm really going to miss him. His impact was felt pretty far and wide. And, some of us will try and keep his legacy going, with the group best we can, but it's a big loss. And my condolences, obviously, to his family and his amazing wife who really took good care of him. And gonna miss him.
Yeah, same. Condolences, and it is a big hole. And these things, you sit there and you look at yourself, and I know this sounds really selfish, but as we get older, my friend, you look around and go, "Holy shit, what's happening? All my the bands I follow are disappearing, and what's happening? Is it me next?"
Yeah. The hardest thing for me is like someone like Ricky was, and I don't want this to sound selfish, because I gave back as much as I could to him because I just genuinely like the guy. But he was like one of us. He was one of ours. He was there for us. We supported each other. And when someone like that, you expect that with close friends, that are in your town and your family. But when you meet someone remotely like that, who suddenly becomes part of the family, and he's always there. He's supporting you, and in kind, we do the same thing. And to lose someone like that, you really feel it, and sadly life hands a different hand to everyone, and he sadly didn't get the best one, but he made an impact, I'll tell you that. So little cheers for Ricky.
We're dedicating today's show to you, Ricky. Love your work. Thank you for everything you've done for us, all of us. Let's get to it. For Ricky today, Dan, what does music mean to you?
What does music mean to me? It's a bit of everything. Music has kind of crept into everything that I do. While I never became like a touring artist or anything like that, I did get into media, but I always found that music was just sort of more than a theme or background music. It was always the thing that motivated me. And even when I was working on things that maybe had nothing to do with music, sort of the pacing and the energy of music just sort of fed me. And, when I got into YouTube, it was almost full circle, where I got to bring together everything that I love to do. And music still remains central to that. And at this, time in my life, I'll still pull out facts. I'll still vehemently protect, the musician and the real artist in the age of AI. And, it's just, it's a heartbeat for me, for sure.
It's interesting. You mentioned AI, and I watched your last video and was pissing myself laughing because You,
Good. That was the intention.
yeah, well, that's part of the reason why I'm into your channel. Not only are you super talented, very knowledgeable, but I do get a laugh out of it. And I like seeing people put themselves in uncomfortable positions. And yeah, using AI vocalist and trying to create a metal track with something that's
The story I told in the video, honestly, this company Dreamtonics from Japan, they're very nice people.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
it's a pretty amazing piece of software, but it seems so out of place for my channel, and I don't think it was very well received. I don't think YouTube knew what to do with it, even though I put a lot of effort into the video. But I had a lot of fun with it, and I decided to sort of make some fun of myself almost. And the music I wrote for a different application, and I like the music, so I hope I didn't ruin it with the vocals. But the whole man against the machine kind of concept, and came up with these very silly lyrics to kind of emphasize that point. And really, the idea again was just have fun. So I'm glad that's what was your takeaway. Hopefully, that was a takeaway from most people that watch it, because if they thought I was being serious, then they thought it'd be a bit of a ham or something.
Well, yeah, I've tried to do shows with those apps, and in the early days when they came out, they're getting better and better. But I always found, and a lot of them are from Asia, a lot of those apps, but you find as you go through the voices, they're really made for that bubblegum pop stuff that's in Asia that really blows up. And yeah, so watching you trying to use those voices to make metal was just like, wow.
Those high screams, like those last notes when we went really high. My best friend here in Toronto, there was a thing that with him and his friends and me, they called it the Paul Stanley scream. It was a friend of his actually. And back, when we were a little younger, we'd be out somewhere in the town, and he would just belt it out. Just no shame, so every time I was doing that, it was sort of like a nod to the Paul Stanley scream. And those who know, but it was just, once I figured that out, I said, okay, we got to put a bunch of those in there. So that was really just for fun, and it really did make me laugh as I went through. And I don't think you're going to see me releasing singles with on Spotify with that as my vocalist, but it was fun to experience it, and we're going to leave it there.
It's interesting, this intro, to get the words out. It's interesting, this AI thing, because I feel like we're heading to this point where in 10 years time, maybe less, Spotify is just going to be like this place where all AI music is, and all the humans are going to go somewhere else and leave them. I just feel it coming. Yeah. And there's going to be this
AI
divide.
And bots will be listening to music made by AI and bots. It'll be a whole little community amongst themselves, and I don't fucking care. Hopefully there will be that revolt. I think, some people believe that's going to happen. When it starts to creep into something you really care about. I often say, will people accept robots at football games or baseball game and hockey games, and like suddenly we're going to be watching AI playing sports? And people say, well, that's different. I had this conversation with my son, and he's like, well, that's different. I go, well, how's it different? Because I consider great musicians like athletes. You have to practice. It takes years and years of practice and dedication, just like it does if you want to be a good athlete. So why are we accepting AI in music? Well, what will happen if AI can somehow creep its way into sports? And now we're watching some AI images of these boxing. But like, honestly, you know what I mean? So when it starts to affect something that you really care about, that's the point where people are going to stand up and say, fuck this, I don't want this anymore. So with music, it's sad, because music is low-hanging fruit. It's always been ripe for cheating or shortcuts. And, and as we get into the digital age, even before AI, like all those programs that just sort of let you, the MIDI chord packs and stuff. Well, I don't know chords. Well, fucking learn some chords if you want to call yourself a musician. I'm going to roll around with a red hat and call myself a fireman too, right? I can do that, right? But anyways, get me started. You did get me started.
Oh, we're going to get started. No, look, it's creeping into this community here too. We got our friend Thomas Christ, and he does a show, You Rock, and plays people's music from around the community. We've already got in the community bad actors who are genuinely not making the fucking music, and they're still throwing it out there going, oh no, it's me. It's like, it's fucking not. Like but the music industry's always had this. It's always had charlatans. It's always had the shady promoters, the companies out there that promise, hey, send us $30, we'll get it to record companies. Yeah, and then my name's Arthur Daly, whatever. But and the interesting thing about it is, I don't understand why somebody puts so much energy into making this music that's not, it's not them, in an industry that's already known for not having a lot of money. I think you chose the wrong path. Stocks, maybe.
And what's insulting is that Suno app. You know, I tried it for the first time last week after Rick Beato did a video about it, and I put in a prompt, and it was like, "Hey, give me a song that sounds like Rush." And while it didn't sound like Rush, it was a very complex progressive rock song. And so, but when I see the ads for it, you've got Timbaland who's like, pushing this app, and I'm thinking, you
Yeah.
motherfucker, like, that does makes no sense. I mean, that hurts his brand, in my opinion. He's trying to find, like, he's already made his money, and now he's two-fisting more cash by being the spokesperson for Suno, when I'll question his motives, and I'll even question his own skills then if he's going to go out there and say, "Hey, this helps," right? So yeah, it's not good, and we'll see where it goes. But
It's interesting.
it's the forbidden fruit. Human beings are weak.
Yes.
Yeah.
Let's rewind time and go back to when the lonely rocker was a wee little lonely rocker hanging around in the house.
A little rockling,
a rockling, yeah, dangling out on the rocks as a rockling. And the music that was played in your household by your family, do you remember who some of those classic artists were, and did you like or hate some of them?
Absolutely.
Let's go.
No, see, absolutely. Listen, my father, who left us about 5 years ago,
I'm sorry for your loss.
loved music. Thank you. He loved music, and he was into jazz. So there was always jazz playing in the house, but it was sort of arranged. I mean, jazz is a general term, obviously, just like rock or pop. It could, there's a range of, there's jazz fusion and stuff. And there was a couple of artists that sort of caught my ear, actually. And Lee Ritenour, who's a very well-known jazz guitar player, Mr. Captain Fingers, and I started to hear some of that. And Dave Grusin and the GRP All Stars. This fusion stuff sounded almost like rock to me, But then there was a bit of funk, and then it was just, and I just recognized how good these players were, and I didn't reject it. Like, I didn't like everything necessarily, and he wasn't really into rock, but I got into rock in grade 5, and I discovered Rush, and then, but my dad liked drummers, and while he didn't understand hard rock, he appreciated really good drummers. So whenever there was a new Neil Peart solo, I would share that with him. So there was a bit of back and forth with that. And mind you, try to turn on the rock radio station in my dad's car, that wouldn't happen, right? I turn it on. But I think he grew to appreciate it a little bit more when he saw me doing YouTube and making music and putting it out there. So I have fond memories. And it's funny, my mother still will go to her place and she'll still turn on the jazz stations that my dad would listen to. So there's that familiarity in the home, and it's nice.
It's an interesting thing with parents and stuff when you tell them that you like music. I remember my dad pretty much told me, "You're never going to do anything with this," and I was like, "Probably not, but it's what I like." And then the last real phone call I had with my dad was just before I went on stage in front of 70,000 people and went, "You're never going to believe this." He's like, and he still said, "I still don't know why you're doing this. You're not going to make any money." I was like, "Dude, you're gone. See you later." So was this pushback for you until was it YouTube that they kind of went, "Hang on a minute"?
No, my parents were, both my parents sort of let me do my thing. I mean, they would dangle. My father had a pretty successful business, and never really said much about me coming into the business, but my mother used to say, "Hey, it's all there for you. Why don't you do that?" And looking back, maybe I should have, right? But I kind of had my own ideas, and I think about it a lot, actually, because while I was in bands and I did an album in my early 20s, but I was already in college for film and television. So there was a part of me that was maybe a little bit too practical just to give it up and go on the road. And, I really didn't have any experience and I didn't know enough. Had I done it, I really don't have any regrets, but they never discouraged me. And in fact, my mother to this day says, "I don't know why you didn't do that, really pursue that." So they were always very supportive of my choices and, just wish me well, whatever I chose to do. So.
That's awesome. So I love this question. It's my favorite one out of all the ones I ask every week on this, almost every week. What's the first album that you purchased with Little Lonely Rocker's first pocket money, and what was given to you as a gift, and was it a satisfactory gift?
Music gift or just gift in general?
Just an album.
I mean,
just an album. Yeah.
Oh, an album. So, well, there's two significant. One that I assume was a gift because I don't remember buying it myself.
Right.
And it's the album that I consider my first rock album. And that would be Supertramp's "Breakfast in America."
Yeah.
I'll listen to that to this day. The first album that I bought with my own money was in the summer of my grade 5 year. It was the last day of school. I love telling this story. You're going to hear Rush a bit on this live stream.
Awesome.
But so it was the last day of grade 5. It was the class party, and someone said, "Hey, play Red Barchetta." And I had no idea what that was. And I said, "Hey, who sings that?" And the guy looks at me and goes, "Duh, Rush." I go, "I'm just kidding." I had no fucking clue. But that summer that would have been 81. And, Tom Sawyer, Limelight, Red Barchetta was on the radio like every day. And I was working at my dad's in the warehouse of my dad's company that summer. And to show you how much money I was making that summer, I saved my shekels. And then at the end of that summer, I went and bought Moving Pictures. And that was my first Rush album. To this day, I consider that one of the greatest albums of all time.
Pretty good first album.
Not a bad one to have. Yeah. But as far as I recall, that was the first one that I bought with my own money. And those two albums I'll still listen to today. So I started pretty fucking good, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. I started terrible. God, I think the first album somebody bought, well, my nan bought me the first album was Kiss Unmasked. And then I think...
started Unmasked.
Yeah, well... But that was the whole bait and switch, that fucking album. They the whole thing was, "We're going to take your makeup off," and they didn't. And it was like...
Oh, they didn't? All right, there you go.
Yeah, and then they did a few albums later, and it was like, "Oh, please put it back on."
Put it back on. Put it back.
What were you thinking? What's going on? What about a big concert? Do you remember as a kid, the biggest concert you kind of went to?
Well, I can remember. My firsts are epic, by the way. I just gave you two pretty good albums. I still remember my first rock concert was Queen.
Fuck.
It was in the Hot Space tour, the one Under Pressure, the David Bowie duet, Under Pressure. We had family in from England, and I guess they heard that Queen was in town, and being British, it's apparently the law over there. You had to listen to Queen. Right. So they like, hey, so they took me. And I remember Billy Squier opened Stroke Me, right, was a popular song then. And saw Freddie Mercury and Queen, and the not this facsimile that they've got going now, but the real Queen. What a way to start too. Great. I could still see him with the feather jacket he used to wear, and I still remember, he walked to the front of the stage. He goes, "This song is for all the girls with a fat ass and the fat bottom girls." I still remember him saying that. Yeah, so I don't remember him wearing the little white shorts or anything like that, but I can remember the risers on either side of the stage and Brian May coming up to our side, ripping up a solo, and wondering how they were going to do Bohemian Rhapsody, and everything went dark during that point. So looking back, obviously that's when the tape kicked in. And but again, what a way to start.
Yeah.
And I have to mention my first Rush concert, September 21st, 1984. Finally got to see Rush live, and I went on a run of 35, 40 shows after that. So
see,
can't remember them all.
I love Rush. I think Rush are awesome, but it's like, because I love avant-garde. I'm just a big avant-garde fan. But I kind of missed the Rush boat, and then I got into them later. My thing was Mr. Bungle. To me, that's like modern Rush. Mike Patton's Mr. Bungle. It's just so fucking off the wall. And then I went back to Rush and was like, this is where it all comes from. Right. So I did play catch up with that stuff, but great music. Let's play another track. We're at our point. So folks, today, now you're noticing a little bit of AI stuff today. See, Dan on his channel makes all these fantastic tutorials and stuff, and normally does a little demo, a track to show off what he's doing. So he sent me a whole lot of these clips today of tracks, and I didn't have anything visual for you guys, so I did do a little bit of AI and turned Dan into an AI caricature. Just if you don't like it, you guys just close your eyes.
And just squint and you'll think it's me.
And just listen. But it's a visual thing, so you're trying. Hey, it took me 20 minutes. I had to do something. So let's throw another one of these up. We're going to go with, E906. So these are just jams that you've sent me. So I'm going to.
So that was a video for the Sennheiser E906 microphone. So that's where the name is.
Yeah, I gathered that was for the gear. So let's do this. You ready, guys? And then we'll come back. We'll say hello to you in the chat. Let's get this thing going. Boom. Nice, short, and sweet, baby.
Can I say something about that image?
Yes.
I have to say something. So that image, you took it from a still that I used for a thumbnail. And that chord that I'm sort of not playing there, whatever, it was for the thumbnail. I was just like stretching out my fingers. I actually sometimes make up chords. I've actually made up chords just because they look cool. And then I figure out later if they actually are do anything that works. So for the thumbnail, I wasn't necessarily playing anything in particular. I was just stretching out the fingers for the thumbnail. And here we are in all its glory. I get to watch it over and over and over.
It was wild, man. Like I put it into Midjourney and it gives you 4 separate videos and I just stitched them all together, you know. So hey, I had 20 minutes. I'm like, what can I do? That'll do, you know. Right. People can have a giggle at it, whatever. Great. Look,
maybe I should have sent you video clips.
Hey, look, we didn't have time and all that stuff. And it's about the music at the end of the day. That's what the thing is, you know. This is what we're here to do. That we make music. And eyes, what are your thoughts of this? Do you think using our eyes too much in music have taken away some of the I don't know, just the earthy passion of listening to the fucking thing instead of like
well, I think that goes with anything, you know, the saying everything in moderation, right? I think our eyes can actually help us. I've talked about this in my previous iteration of my channel where I used to do more mixing tutorials. Our eyes actually can help us in mixing these days because we're all mixing in, we'll say, non-optimal situations, right? As much as I took some care when I built the studio to put some acoustic treatment and things to make it better, this is not the most optimal mixing environment because there's problems in this room, right? There's frequencies that I just can't hear. So if you're mixing in your bedroom or in your kitchen or in your bathroom or in your garage, chances are you're not, no matter how good your speakers are, you're not hearing all of the frequencies and you can't mix what you can't hear. So I actually did a video on using spectrum analyzers and in combination with certain EQ techniques. And I believe it's good to assist your mixing and music creation, but shouldn't be a replacement for it. So if it's a balance, I actually think it's a good thing. If you just put on a meter and mix with a meter, your mix is going to sound like shit anyways, right? Because you know it's still about feel and how it all fits together, and that's a creative choice that you're going to make. But we need visual assistance because, like I said, our rooms are not optimal, and you can't mix what you can't hear.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's say hello to some folks who are here. We normally do this around halfway, 30 minutes in. So folks, you know the deal. I can only scroll up a certain amount. So if you type something, anything, words, you know I'm going to call you out. It helps. Doug Kidder's in the house. Roque's here. We got Forrester the Wolf. Gary Hubbs. He asked, so where in Canada is Dan from? I'm guessing Ontario.
Well, Ontario is the province. I'm in north of Toronto. I'll say north of Toronto in the suburbs. By the way, I would like to do my own shout out, by the way, because my sister is here. RJK user is my sister, and I know she's with her husband Ian and my mother. It's her birthday today, so I want to wish my mother a very happy birthday. And I know she's watching here today, so I just had her over for some coffee, and now she's getting a free dinner at my sister's place. So it's a good day. But happy birthday to my mom.
Happy birthday,
Mom. None of this would happen if it wasn't for her, right?
Exactly. Happy birthday. Thanks for joining us. We got Thomas Christ here as well, Robbie Stingle, Hugh Caldwell, Jenny Jolivet, Russ8889 who's joining me tomorrow. We've got Donald Duck here. Wow, that's amazing. How did you find your way here, Donald Duck? Nice. Jamie Lynn, who else have I missed? I think I've got most of you, unless I've got a script. Denise, hello, I see you there down the bottom. Denise, if I've missed anyone else, go with the Flow Farm. Who else can I get in? I think I said Hugh Caldwell. If I see anyone, I saw the Mix Club. G'day, Mix Club. Good to see you, balls. And if I've missed you guys, I'll catch up as we keep going on. You know the deal. Everybody's throwing happy birthdays. Good on you. You guys rock. You're legends.
Thank you. And I don't know if you guys are here for Jade or for me, but thanks for being here. I appreciate it.
We got a good crew come along and support our artists, and you know. So, and they're all very chirpy, aren't they? Look at them, all their happy birthdays over there.
It's actually scrolling. There's a certain cred to a live stream when you get a scroll. Like, as long as it's moving, as long as it's moving.
Yeah, there's times when I'm doing tutorials and I'll look up and the chat hasn't moved for 10 minutes. I'm like, am I still live? What's going on? Does this suck that much? It probably does. Let's talk about lessons, baby, because like theory stuff, there's a lot of debate. People say, oh, you don't need to know theory, blah, 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 all this stuff. Did you have lessons as a kid at school? Did you have music class, and did they force you to play the recorder?
I think I did play the recorder, and when I got
Ooh.
to choose an instrument, I chose the saxophone. So, I always wanted to be the cool kid, right?
Yeah.
Lessons. I started the guitar actually is just off camera here. I wish I could show you, but my father gave me my first guitar. It's a classical guitar, and my parents put me into classical guitar lessons when I can't remember. I was still in single digits or early double digits. Can't quite remember exactly. And it was like, piano lessons, right? And I just couldn't get into it. And my parents were like, you got to practice at least 15 minutes a day. And they would force me to practice. And then after a while, I just wasn't doing it. So they pulled me out. And it wasn't until I got the bug around the time I discovered that Rush album, I was playing the tennis racket. So got my first guitar. But I'm skipping a few stories here. You're talking about lessons. So
yeah, you
over
go.
the course of that journey, I wanted to go back into lessons, and my parents were a little bit apprehensive about that, but we finally did. And then my teacher said, you need an electric guitar if you want to learn how to play rock guitar. So there's a little bit of a foundation there. I think learning is important no matter what you do. You could try and do it yourself and be self-taught, and there's a lot of incredible artists out there that are self-taught. But music, much like any other art form or really anything, is knowledge, right? And knowing how to apply that knowledge, and you could figure it out for yourself if that's something you're into. I think you have to really enjoy that process. I don't think it necessarily makes you more original than anyone else. I think you have to enjoy that process of discovering things that are taking longer to discover things. But having a bit of a foundation certainly doesn't hurt. I'm not well versed in theory, but I know enough that I could fight my way out. That's right.
In a duel, you'd leave them bloodied. Nice.
Yeah. I mean, and that's kind of, you didn't ask this question, but I've often, to articulate what kind of guitar player that I am, right? Because I admire players that are so instinctive, and they can, especially in the YouTube world, they could just plug in their guitar, put a camera on, riff for 5-10 minutes, have a video, and call it a day. I can't do that. I don't feel comfortable doing that. I need time to craft and think about it, and I'm more of a composed type of player. So having that little foundation helps me, but I'm not so good at it that I can just boom, there it is. I need to kind of stop for a second and kind of work it out a little bit, but I can put together some fairly complex things, or not everything's about complexity, but you know what I mean, right? So that little bit of knowledge helps me. And I have more of an appetite now to learn more, actually. So,
yeah. There's no right way. That's a thing. This is even with YouTube, you sit here and watch. I watch a lot of channels, and whenever I see somebody go, "This is the only way to do something," I'm like, "No, I don't know if I'm going to watch this video."
It comes down to like music is about there's the performance part, and there's the songwriting part, the craft. I mean, for me personally, I've always judged artists on, okay, if I hear a song and I like it, can they do it live? And so the ability for me is important, actually. I mean, I admire effort, and players are really good, and they can kind of combine skill that, they acquired from dedication and practice with something that was innate in them, put those two things together, and that's kind of what gets me going. So, no, you don't have to be able to play classical concertos and know all your theory and stuff. I don't think necessarily needs to go that far, but there needs to be effort somewhere. That's my opinion. There needs to be effort somewhere. You need to have your discipline and be good at that thing. And however you get there, well, that's between you and your musical God, right? Who am I to judge? But if it sounds good and you can reproduce it and play it yourself, I'm good. Right?
And music. There's so much more to it now these days. Like back when I started playing in bands, it was like understand how to book a rehearsal room, go in and sing there with your band, and nobody can hear you, and you've just spent $40 on a room where you come out worse than you were before. Yeah. And you got to write the music, you got to get along with the people that you work with, and then you got to understand the politics of going out and booking gigs and getting shows and dealing with promoters and finding your way through the minefield of who's trying to rip me off when I have no money.
Hmm.
And these days there's social media as well too, and you've got to be a jack of everything now. You just have no choice unless you have the money to pay somebody to do it for you, and who has that, you know?
Yeah. I mean, channels get to that point where they do bring in crews, and I almost feel like some of those channels lose the original spirit of the channel, you know. I wish I had help, because I do. I mean, the spirit of the name Lonely Rocker, I mean, the whole idea is, I mean, I'm not that lonely in life, but I do everything by myself here, from the like every aspect of the music. I play, you know, guitar, I play all the bass. I'm very meticulous with my digital drum production. I don't just push loops around. I actually craft the drums, and then I have to produce the content, you know, which is shooting and editing, color correction. I'm in front of the camera. There's a lot of things to do, you know, a lot of
Yeah.
disciplines. So I wish I had help, but the whole spirit of the channel, the term Lonely Rocker, it's kind of autobiographical. So if I did have an editor behind the scenes, then I wouldn't be the Lonely Rocker anymore. But this is not sustainable forever. Like, at some point, I hope I can get some help, and find a way to do it without losing the spirit of the channel. Um, but I've seen, it's like some bigger channels, they get to that point where they need the help, but then the channel sometimes doesn't feel the same.
Yeah,
You know?
yeah. I've seen that recently with the channel I watched. So you can tell just over the last few weeks, they've finally got somebody to produce the videos,
Yeah.
and just watching the responses in the comments is like popcorn material, because some people are so anti, and I think it's really good.
Yeah.
I think it looks good, but it's got to be so hard to find somebody to match your vision, because
Yeah.
no matter what, they're being hired for their craft, so they take it as like, well, I'm being hired because of what I do. I should be able to inject some of what I do in. Is it going to work? How would you have you actually gone and had a look to find somebody like that before, or?
I have actually, and I've spoken to some people. There was a video that I started almost 5 years ago that I still haven't finished. That it's kind of bothering me now that I'm thinking about it, because I had a bunch of industry guests, and it was about the tube. You know, those of us who love real amplifiers, you know, the survival of the tube is very important because we love our tube amps. And it became such a big project that, you know, and then we moved house, and then set up a new studio, and then, you know, the responsibility of keeping up everything I do with the channel, not to mention my personal responsibilities and family and things like that. So if I was looking for an editor, and the editor told me, it seemed like a pretty decent dude, and I was looking at his reel, he had some good stuff on there, and he told me that you need to finish this yourself. The editor told me that, right?
That's
And I shouldn't have fucking listened to it, because I still haven't finished it yet. So I don't. So, but I'll tell you though, in the spirit of what I just said, I can see bringing in a video. If I had a video editor, I think that would be definitely, hopefully, I want to say would, I want to say will be my first hire, because, you know, that's something that I came into the industry as a video editor. That was my first professional job. And then I got into producing, directing, and then doing everything at once. It became this one job where you had multiple disciplines. But I know enough about production that I could direct, because I have directed content. So I could direct an editor, you know, still my vision, but still room for collaboration, because I'm not such a control freak that, you know, I couldn't relinquish some of that control. But editing would be a safe hire, because, you know, editing is never perfect. As soon as they invented the undo button, right? Well, just change it, right?
Yeah.
But if an editor had his own style and started bringing a different angle to the show, I would actually welcome that. But at the same time, I wouldn't lose control, because the spirit of the show would still be me. And not that I think anyone actually cares at this point, but in my own mind, you know, I would keep the spirit of what I wanted to do, but then I could relinquish some of that responsibility, because editing is very time consuming. But at the same time, I sometimes shoot, edit, shoot, edit, shoot, edit. It's a bad habit to get into when I'm sitting
Yeah.
in this room and I shoot here, and I'm sitting at my desk right now, and my editing software is here. I know we're getting into that soon. So sometimes I'll shoot, edit, shoot, edit, shoot, edit, because I don't feel like writing a script. And so, yeah, so editing, I think, would be the first hire.
It's interesting. When you get into editing, I edit my walk with me's, and I film all this stuff when I'm out and about on the street. So you just got a camera and you're filming stuff, and you got no idea if all this is this going to work. And then you get home and just dump it all in and go, All right, it works. I think it works. You end up with a lot of crap that you just dump,
Yeah.
but that's the fun bit. That is to me like I said to you before when we started this show. I get so bored editing a tutorial. It's so boring to me. But outside, if I'm filming these huge landscapes, it's like all pretty and colorful. I'm like, oh, I'm really into this. But outside of that, so we have covered this. So I want to know about. Obviously, at some point when you were younger, you played in a band.
I did.
The what were their name? The first band.
So my high school band.
Yeah, come on.
Well, the name that we settled on because we went through some really, really bad ideas. Actually, I'll tell you one of the bad ideas.
That's what I
told
want.
you we're going to be mentioning Rush more than once on this stream. But I was in grade 9 in high school, big Rush fan. Probably just saw that first concert, and getting together with some guys that are into the same kind of music. And the first band name that sort of was added to the list, and this is going to sound really. Now, if you remember the band Queen's Reich, right?
Of course,
of course, Reich spelled R-Y-C-H-E. So I had suggested, why don't we call ourselves Reich? Yeah, it's pretty bad.
I love it.
But thankfully we did settle. But we when we started playing shows, the name that stuck was Daze, D-A-Z-E.
Daze.
So I always loved the idea of a single word name. So we were Daze. We even had business cards and everything like that. And then, so that after high school, we were getting a little more serious. We started playing in the clubs and things like that. As a cover band, we were known as at one point One Too Many. And then there was another band we found out started calling themselves One Too Many, and they were on the radio, so we lost that one. And then we called ourselves Signature, but spelled S-Y. But here's the funny thing: I think we're the only band in history that you had two different names, both starting with the letters S-Y. Signature spelled wrong with the Y, but then later we became Syzygy. Yes. We actually did an album under the name Syzygy. And
what is that?
All the names.
What is Syzygy?
Okay, so funny thing is, towards the end of high school, there was a big rock show at school, and there's some good friends of ours, one of which I'm still in touch with. They formed for one night, and they called themselves Syzygy, S-Y-Z-Y-G-Y. And I always thought that was a cool looking word. And I didn't question it, but it was always in the back of my mind. Now, they only used it for one night, and they disbanded, and that was the end of that. So years later, we were getting serious. We were playing the clubs. We were looking for a new name. So we decided to split up. We went to the library, the Toronto Public Library, and we went into different sections. And the idea was to go through some different books. So I ended up in the, science or astronomy section. And I had this Russian, English, Chinese dictionary of astronomy. And I opened up the book, and what word popped out at me was Syzygy. And I'm like, okay, that was them, but they're not really using it. It was only one night. So I wrote it down and I brought it back. The guys really liked the name. So we ended up using it, and we ended up gigging with the same musician. He was in a new band. I think they were called Zang Tum Tum or something. And he actually said, oh, thanks, as if it was a tribute to them. It wasn't. We just liked the name. But it was a bad name for publicity because we got on the radio for some of those what they call basement rocks and like independent shows. And I'll never forget the DJ. She came on, and up next are Jones, the Fives, and Skidjui. Oh my God, I can't say this. I was like, fuck you. I know my mother's listening, as my sister just said, but that's just what I said, right? I'm telling a true story here.
Yep.
So it was not, people couldn't pronounce it, but it's a real word. It's a real word. So get your dictionary, people.
Look, I feel your pain. We did exactly the same thing when one of our bands ended, and we decided to, because we were called Despised, and we ended up changing our name to Durnt, D-U-R-N-T. And the joke behind it was when people go, Durnt, and we go, yeah, Durnt, 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 Durnt. Didn't really work out like anything
unless
else.
You're on the inside.
And nobody could pronounce it right. It's just a mess. Stupid idea, but we loved it. It worked good for us. So playing in bands, you have any horror stories as a youngster? Did you trash any hotels? Get ripped off by people? All that kind of juicy stuff that a lot of people don't get to experience these days?
I mean, we just gigged around town. I mean, unfortunately, we never toured. I mean, I remember as an 18-year-old, we played a big Battle of the Band show at a place called the Concert Hall, which is actually a venue where name bands play. I think it can hold 1,200, 1,500 people or something like that. And we hopped on stage, and the place was packed. I remember we were opening up with Doobie Brothers, China Grove. And I remember hitting that first chord, and it was just a bunch of teeny boppers who didn't know who we were, but they were just probably excited to be out.
Yeah, right.
We probably could have sat there and started read the Bible. They'd probably cheer. And but I remember we were getting into it, and then we did Robert Palmer's "Simply Irresistible."
Oh, wow.
And our keyboard player, who was the most accomplished musician, he was actually classically trained, whatever. There's a part right before the solo where there's like an upbeat, right? It's like an offbeat thing. He went one section early and he did that thing, and it just messed everybody up. And so we're in front of like over 1,000 people. I used to tell the story it was 2,000 people. It was a lot of people for an 18-year-old. And suddenly, like, everyone stopped, but somehow my drummer just picked up a beat, and then the bass player just started do 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 do. And in talking to people afterwards, they thought that it was on purpose, and it was actually a contest, and we actually won somehow. I mean, the judges were up in the second, but we had one instrumental that we played. It was called All Out of Ink. It was like a funky instrumental, and I remember seeing the judge. He was actually up and dancing when we were playing it. So I was like,
wow.
okay, that can't be. So they quickly forgot that big mistake, and yeah, and talking to people later, they thought it was on purpose. So it wasn't, and it was hell at the time. But I mean, honestly, some bad gigs here and there, but generally, not too many real horror stories. I'm probably forgetting something on purpose, but I don't know.
It's interesting with audiences, isn't it? Because I think most musicians have experienced this. You do a gig and you feel it in your bones. You go, I think that was a really good gig. And then you do a really terrible one, and your friends or whatever, the people at the gig, come up and go, that was the best I've ever seen you play. Like, have you been watching us? Like, really?
I did learn a valuable lesson early in playing in the bars, like, when they were serving food and stuff, is that never eat chicken wings right before a set.
Oh, all right.
Fingers like sticking together. I never eat chicken wings to this day. And my best friend, unfortunately couldn't be here today, but we joke about it all the time, is that I don't eat chicken wings with my left hand. To this day, even like I'm not gigging or nothing, I'll sit there with my right, because I learned to eat them with my right hand, so I wouldn't gum up the fretting hand.
Nice. I haven't thought of that before.
Yeah, no, I'll stick my hand in my pocket when I'm eating wings. I'll just eat it with my right hand. Yeah.
I love that. Let's play another track. Tell us about this one. This one's called Nano QC.
Nano QC. So that's a recent one where I did a capture shootout. So I recently did a video on the Nano Cortex, and then I do have a quad Cortex. So I do balance things here with real amps and the modelers. But I believe I did a capture on, I think it was my Evo amp, or was it I can't remember. But it was one of these two behind me, one of these two. And just basically a shootout between the two and how well they capture a real amplifier.
Shit, yeah, let's do it, baby. We got 1:26, guys. Nice short little blasts today, so let's soja.
funny listening to it this way because I'm listening to the composition now, sort of a little bit removed. A couple things I should mention since I have it here. That guitar, since we can't have a visual, got to give a
Yes.
shout out to my friends at Balaguer. They hooked me up with this beautiful Espada custom. So
That's a
this is a
nice
drop C
guitar.
sharp.
That's
This is
a
drop
nice
C sharp.
guitar.
And one thing that I love to do, compositionally, is that a word? Is time signatures, because that main riff was in 7/4, but then I threw in a 6 before I went into a 4, and then back to the 7 at the end. Yeah, I love shifting meters, and that's kind of my thing. And I like exploring different time signatures. Sometimes, actually, when I've got a blank canvas, I'll think about, let's do something in 11, and I'll just set up a repeat, not even a groove, but just set up the bars of 11. Then I'll just start crafting some kind of rhythm, and then I'll try to write something to that rhythm. And it all started because I wanted to write something in 11. And I do that sometimes. Not always, but sometimes.
So yeah, the tracks that you sent me as I'm listening through them, because obviously I see them in the videos, but I was putting you into that ridiculous AI thing that I made. But I was sitting here last night just singing along to them going, oh man, that's a collaboration we should do down the line. You need a singer for something? You got me, man. That's what I do. So
I should finish. I'd like to finish some of these songs. I mean, I have a few songs that I do get to completion, but it's I just don't. I've actually had people asking me, hey, do you upload to Spotify? Where can I find this song? And I'm like,
yeah.
I have a couple songs up there, but nothing that I'm really promoting, and I just don't seem to ever get to that point. I have enough music now. It's funny, when the exercise of giving you some clips, because I gave you a few more than you're going to play today.
Yeah.
I was like, man, I got a lot of stuff here that if and I call them songettes. That's what I call them, because they're all short, right? And in fact, they're getting shorter. I'm working on a video today for this amp that's hiding behind me here. This is the Black Starr IDX50. I can say that because it's out now, but I'm just looking at little jams now because I'm, keeping people's interest. Not everyone likes heavy rock grooves. They may just want to hear the amp and hear some blues licks or something. You never know, right? So I'm getting even shorter with the samples now. And now it's a riff. It's not a song anymore, But I have a lot of these riffs and songettes on my computer. Like I don't know if I'll ever get to doing a full album, but it certainly it's fun to think about.
Yeah, absolutely.
I have enough material now that I could easily get into pre-production now for sure, because there's a lot of years worth of riffs that I've been collecting at just making music for the channel.
I'm
not going to call them songs yet. They'd still need, I'd like to add vocals to many of them. They don't all have to be instrumental, and they need arranging and things like that. But there's definitely enough there that we could start doing some work, but maybe.
When I reached out to you and I said, do you have anything on Spotify or anything like that? And you said no. But maybe a year ago I would have gone, really? But at the same time, I know myself doing YouTube, my output of music is just because
I actually have 2 songs. I do have 2 songs on Spotify. Actually, I didn't think about it. One of them I'm actually pretty proud of, actually, but I forgot about that one. But it's a longer song. If we have any time to kill at the end, if you want, but it's called Fade. I actually gave myself a challenge to see how complex of a song I could write and perform on my own.
What name is it under?
Lonely Rocker.
All right.
And there's 2 songs there. One's called I Want Out, and the other one's called Fade.
Found it.
Yeah, actually, they're both the one. Actually, why didn't I think about this? I Want Out is actually a song that I recorded with a real drummer. Actually, a drummer that I found in Norway. I reached out to him because he did this great Neil Peart Subdivisions cover, and we got to chatting. And then I just said, "Hey, you want to do a track?" And I had this new song I was working on. He says, "Yeah, I'd be into it, but I'm not really into the song you sent me. But I found this one on your channel." And there's actually a music video on YouTube for that one as well. So that's actually a fun tune.
I'll find it.
That's a fun tune.
We'll do a search and I'll find it. I've got it saved here. So, go for it.
No, I'd say, and Fade was just a challenge that I gave. That song took me a year to finish.
Oh, wow. I'm definitely finding it now. Let me just...
There's a video for Fade too, actually.
Yeah, that's what I'm looking for now. Rocker. While I'm doing this search. So... you're playing some bands, you start to go, maybe I'll get into something else. Where do you go with your work? So you get into production. Tell us about that side of you.
Coming out of high school, I was in a band, and we were rehearsing like 4 or 5 days a week. We got a rehearsal studio, and then um, we reconnected with a keyboard player that was in a rival band. It's funny, the core of the band was two guys and two guys that were in a rival band. We became a band, and we had another singer. But then when we lost that singer, the keyboard player had said, "Hey, why don't I just sing for now?" Well, sorry, we had separated, but then the three of us, the drummer and the other two of us, we spent like a year rehearsing, and we wrote about 12 or 15 songs. So when we reconnected with the keyboard player, we brought those songs to him, and he said, "This is great. I could add my keyboard parts to it. And I can maybe add a couple songs. Let me just hum the melodies for now, and we'll look for a singer." And then it just stuck. So we ended up playing the clubs. That became, our thing. But then, he was also the one that eventually left, and rebuilt. And we did it. That's when we did the album. We recorded a full-length album, and that's a whole story into itself. But it was just, we couldn't pick up the pieces at that point. We had already changed drummers, and then that was successful. But then once the keyboard player singer left the band, it was just, didn't seem enough collective interest to keep it going. So I found myself not in school and not in a band. So I ended up taking an interest in production because I saw the course calendar for a film and TV program at a local college. So I didn't get in the first year, but the second year I got serious and pushed myself into film and television. But it's funny you asked me about music. Music was still important because while I was now getting into the visual medium, music was a big part of that, right? My timing and just my instincts from being a musician helped me, especially as an editor, right? As I got into editing. And then I pushed myself into post-production because in college, everybody wanted to be the director. So you'd be on like a film shoot, which was a class, let's face it. But you had the boom operator screaming out, his opinions to the, it's like, "You're the boom operator. Just shut what up. Let the director
Hold the stick."
Yeah, exactly. So I said, "You know what? You guys shoot your little movie. I'm going into post." And I left the set and I majored in post sound and video. And I was working before school finished. And so that was sort of my transition out of my dream of being a musician. Whether or not that was a dream or it was just something I was doing, I'm not sure. I just love doing it. And but did music videos in college. My band reformed while I was in college. That's when we were touring, and that's when we did the album. So that all happened while I was in college. So I was sort of doing kind of had a parallel path there. And then when the band did eventually break up, I had finished college and I was already working. So it just kind of happened. It wasn't like I made a conscious decision. I was like, all right, well, I'm doing this. It's funny. I look back that now it's that multidiscipline approach that really made me who I am now. So it wasn't like this traumatic thing where, oh my God, the band broke up. What do I do now? I was already working, so.
Yeah. It's, again, like I said before, you have to be multifaceted these days for most things. And you have to be able to pick up things really quick, no matter what it is. No matter what. Like I worked a corporate role for many, many years with American Express, and I don't know anything about banking, but very easily you look around and see the system and see the rules of engagement and quickly climb the ladder and piss everybody off, and they want to get rid of you.
Yep.
So were you involved in that kind of thing? Was there a moment like during production and stuff where you just were like, fuck, I don't want to be working for people anymore and doing shit for people?
Well, it's funny. I've been fiercely independent for most of my career. Like when I started, getting paid in the production industry, I mean, I came out of college and I was, literally making minimum wage for this, sleazy little production company, but I got a lot of experience doing that. And then when that company folded, I literally went downstairs, the place I used to buy tape stock from. And I mentioned that I was a free agent now. I'm like, "Oh, do you freelance? How much do you charge?" I was like, this much, this much. So I got scared and I said, "This much." "Oh, sure." And I was like, "Damn, I should have said the higher number." But so I just kind of rolled into that. So I was now like a freelance editor. And then there was a guy that I sold some gear from the previous company, and I happened to pass by, and he was outside, and "Well, you were an asshole." He goes, "I'll tell you what, once you come here, I'm going to buy an edit suite system, and you're going to run it and whatever." He already had a full, like that was back in the tape suite days, right? Yep. So it was they didn't have I got into Avid, Media Composer, video editing. It was called nonlinear editing at the time, and he literally bought the system. It was a finishing nonlinear system, because they had like what they called offline at the time. You would edit in a low video resolution, and then when you were done, you would upres it either on tape or to a higher, digital based system. So he literally bought the system and built it around me, and then I worked there. But it was kind of like, I was on a retainer, and they would pay me a guarantee for 30 hours a week. But if there was zero work, I still got paid 30 hours. But if I worked 60, I got paid 60. So there were clients I hated, and there was like a lot of corporate clients, and I hated editing corporate videos because there was no soul. But I sort of reached out to some music video production companies that were in the neighborhood, and suddenly I was pulling in these music video companies, and my boss hated it because they all wanted to have flat rates, right? Where they were charging $200 an hour for my suite, for me and my suite. And then they say, hey, we got $1,500. Can we do this video? I'd say, yeah, man, let's do it. And then he would get pissed off at me. I said, look, I just want to add some creativity for our reel so we can start attracting some better stuff. And I'm glad I did it, because I made a lot of contacts that way, and I made a name for myself. And, but it's funny, again, being fiercely independent, like the director would come in, it was his music video. And I used to say, literally, and I was kind of cocky back in those days, I said, all right, I tell you what, come in, give me your little story, whatever, show me your footage, tell me what you're thinking. I said, and then get the fuck out of my suite. I don't want to see you for 3 days. Let me edit my version, and then you can have some notes afterwards. But I hooked these people up. I was getting them like some high-end editing facilities, and I was getting the prices bundled against the will of my boss, but I was doing it anyways. And I was like the senior guy at this point, so I was like, what, are you gonna fire me? Like, okay. So but I never really got stuck. I mean, I think I took a job for about 18 months, and that was working for a friend of mine. I don't want to get into the whole story because it ended pretty badly, but most of my career I have been an independent, contract, freelance, and just somehow made a go of it. Was never the plan, but so I never really got stuck. I mean, I got stuck in projects I didn't like, or I had a client that I didn't like, but I never really got stuck in a job that I didn't want, because I just never put myself there.
I think there's a lot of credence to when I was in school. I had one teacher who actually promoted this, was just go and do whatever you want to do, create your own roles. And you can, like, the thing is, you can do that even within a corporation. Like, I did it when I worked at American Express. They didn't have a social media department, and it was like, I can do that. And you manufacture your own job, even within a massive company. It's very easy to do, because all you got to do is pay attention to what's going on in the business and look for an opportunity. It's the same with music, same with video, all this stuff. There's always an opportunity if you can find that little space. It's how SEOs work, People I remember we were trying to get a business off the ground, and we were just trying to find something that you wouldn't even think of to drop ship. And we ended up going with sauna rocks.
Wow.
We fell down the rabbit hole of sauna rocks. Like, how do they get them?
You mean you got pulled down the rabbit hole of sauna?
Yeah, exactly. And we ran this little business for about 3 months, and I was like, this isn't working. I don't know anything about sauna rocks. What am I doing? But, create your own roles. I mean, it is a very different thing, because you do, I mean, you have the power to be cocky. You said being cocky. I don't think you are rude or mean or anything like that. You just know what I think you've got to, do you think this? You've got to put out that image that you know what you're doing. I know what I'm doing, so just trust me, without being
Well, confident. I think confidence is important. It's funny you say that, because, I look at my persona. I sit back and I look at my videos, and I've never been comfortable being on camera. When I started my channel, I was only voiceover. And then after doing a few videos, I recognized that people want to identify with somebody.
Yeah.
It's funny today with all those AI channels with that same voice that you hear in every video, there's no soul, right? It's just the same thing. And so being a voiceover, I realized I needed to sort of put myself out there. So I did. And then, sorry, I lost the question for a second. I go too far back. Confidence. Okay, so yeah.
So did I.
So being too cocky or confident. So looking at my persona sometimes, I sometimes wonder if I'm a little bit too nice. So I'm known as a nice guy, and I'm not trying to be an asshole, but maybe a bit of confidence, not being afraid to express an opinion. I don't want to do anything sensational. You know, unfortunately, this is the age that we're in. We were talking about that before the stream. You know, just criticizing people or that. I have no interest in that. But being a little bit confident, you know, in an opinion, I don't have a problem with that. And there's a couple of videos where I sort of expressed an opinion, and I was pretty emphatic about that opinion, and videos did pretty well because it created a reason for engagement, and suddenly there was a lot of comments, and then the video suddenly, you know, did 30,000-40,000 views, you know. So I need to do that more, I think, and sort of take my own advice and maybe be a little more confident and just put out some opinions and thoughts and maybe encourage people to engage in discussion, because that's good fuel for a video.
Absolutely. And we're going to play this. I think this is the one. Is this it's called the biggest songwriting and production challenge ever?
Yes, that's it.
All right. So we'll play this. And but first, what we'll do is we'll hear from our sponsor, which I have a pre-recorded ad for. I'll run the ad and then we'll jump straight into this clip. So it's 7 minutes 4. Is it a story or is it just a whole clip? Oh, there we go.
It's a music video. So I'm performing.
Awesome.
It's a song and I'm performing, and it's in chapters, and the song's called Fate. So I can, yeah.
Awesome. All right, let's do this. So we'll run our DistroKid ad. Thanks for being here, everybody. You ready? We're going to run an ad because we love DistroKid. Let's do this now, and then we'll jump straight into this track. Let's do it. Make sure the volume's good. Boom. This presentation is proudly sponsored by DistroKid. Introducing DistroKid, your ultimate music distribution solution. For just $29.99 a year, DistroKid empowers you to release unlimited tracks on all major music platforms worldwide, including Spotify, Apple Music, TikTok, and so many more. Plus, use my link distrokid.com/VIP/Jade and get 7% off your first year. You'll also keep 100% of your royalties and gain access to valuable tools like instant verification on Spotify and detailed revenue analytics. Don't let your music go unheard. Join DistroKid today and take your music career to the next level. Thank you, DistroKid, for sponsoring today's presentation. Wow. Fuck me drunk sideways and call me Shirley. That was, sorry, Dan's mum. Um, that was that was something wild. That was
Well,
awesome, dude. There's a
thank
reason,
you.
folks, why I've been telling you all week. You got to come and check this guy out.
I wish I had time to do more of that.
Yeah, please,
By the
please.
way, I was just reading the comments as the song was playing, and I can't respond to everyone individually, but thank you for everyone who said something kind about the song. You know, I wish I had more time to do that. That was a personal challenge of mine. And by the way, I appreciate some of the comments about the mix. I think my mixing ability has come a long way since that track, but that was definitely a milestone for me, for sure, because I had, was struggling like we all do in terms of learning how to mix. And I remember that video, that song, I sort of got to a point where I was starting to feel more comfortable mixing um, songs, and now it's become more instinctive. So, but that was definitely a milestone for me for sure.
That was just incredible. The clip was great. There's so much complexity in there. That's a gun.
If I could be fully transparent, by the way, in terms of like what went into making that, because now it's very important to me that I play everything. It's not uncommon, like guitar players, if they're doing a solo, maybe they'll do a couple of takes and they'll comp and do stuff like that. And because this took about a year to put together, by the time I went to shoot the video, which was here in the studio behind me, the song was actually recorded in my previous studio. So a lot of time had passed, and I had to remember how to play everything to perform it in the video. So I meticulously went through the solo because there's a lot of solos there, right?
Yeah.
And one of them I knew, two of them I knew note for note. One of them was just like, what the hell was I playing? And I'm like listening to it. I saw someone mention about pentatonics. Yeah, there's a lot of pentatonic scales in there, but they're all over the place, right? And so I'm watching it going, not bad. There's a couple of, creative edits where maybe I couldn't remember, but for the most part, I would say 99% of all that music, bass, guitar solos, there's acoustic guitars, like a little bit of keyboards. I had to recall everything after the fact just to make the video.
Yeah.
And I worked way too hard. And I don't think that video got that many views, but it was just something I wanted to do for myself. So
Video clips are they're they're fun. I'm shooting one at the moment, and unfortunately, it keeps raining every day. And I head out with the camera to go shoot my part. As soon as I get out, it starts raining. I gotta come home, and it's dragging out. So let's get to starting a YouTube channel. What do you do? Did you have a plan? Had you watched other stuff to get an idea of how to do it, or did you just go for it and fuck what anyone thinks?
I actually feel a little bit stupid about my late entrance into YouTube because I had a YouTube account for many years, and I uploaded the odd thing here and there, and here I am in the production community, and I never put the two together, and I'm like, so it was 2018. I was now working in making TV commercials. I was contracted commercial producer director, and I had been thinking about it for a while, and my channel used to be called I Don't Have a Band. Tools for the Lonely Rocker was what I called myself. And I don't know, I just had this desire to do something for myself, but I was busy working as a TV producer, so I was making a video maybe every 6 weeks, maybe every 2 months. And then really it was, and this is a common story, pandemic hit, and a lot of things in my life changed around that time. And I found myself at home. Thankfully, my wife has a good government job that continued, uninterrupted through the pandemic. But sitting in a room with 30 people in production, which just wasn't happening. So I decided to start doing it more often during the pandemic. So out of the pandemic, I just kept going, and really that's it. And I always imagined, because of my marketing background and my production ability and making good quality content, because I was making TV grade video, that I would be able to parlay that into something a little bit more meaningful on a business side. That's still part of my plan, getting into some products or things like that. I'd love to, white label some software or do a SKU of pedals with someone. I know enough people in the industry now. So that's always been something, because I know the life of a YouTuber is only so long. I'm a moderate, still considered a small channel, just about to hit 35,000 subscribers. So maybe not small, but I also did a niche down about 3 years ago, so technically I'm a little bit smaller than my subscriber number may show. So, but that's always the plan has always been to use it as a springboard into something more meaningful. It's taking a fair bit longer than I ever imagined it would, but it takes other people even longer. I mean, and we're all on a different journey. So that really was mostly the plan. I feel good that I've created an amazing network of friends, professional relationships, brands. You can see some of the brand names behind me. I mean, some of those amps behind me were made for me. Like 4 of the amps that you see in this shot were
Oh,
made for me. Yeah.
which
So,
ones?
well, so let's start with this
Look,
guy right
like, let's
here.
just be honest, hang on, because like everyone here has been hanging to find out about these amps. There's been so many questions. So
Oh, how's it?
I'm
Okay.
giving it to you. There we go. I'm just shining it on you now. You go for it.
All right. Well, the ones that we see in the frame, which is I have a moderate collection. I have a friend who's got like 10 times this number, but in terms of ones that I can use. So starting with this guy here, this is an amp. It's a hand wired all tube amp made by a builder in New Jersey. This is Evo amps. Rob used to be the tech for George Lynch.
Right.
And he's also known as Jaded Faith Mods, where he's known in the mod community where you have an amp that needs to do that, but it's not currently doing it. Rob will do it for you. So he's modified. He's worked for manufacturers. He's had his hands in probably tens of thousands of amps, and then wanted to start his own brand. Tom Monda is in a band called Thank You Scientist. They're kind of a jazzy fusiony kind of band. Incredible guitar player. So this is a signature amp for Tom Monda. But this was sent to me for review. And I absolutely adore this amplifier. It just has this amazing mid-range. It has a sweepable mid-range, so it can take on all sorts of different characteristics. And obviously there's a clean and dirty channel, beautiful clean channel, but you can push that into nice edge of breakup. It's just one of the best guitar subtones I ever crafted. Even Rob told me so when you heard it. And then a heavier channel, but with that sweepable mid-range, you can really change the characteristics of the amp, so it really can do a lot of different things. And so that's that one. Above it is another very special amplifier, Tube Workshop, based in Germany. I met Mario at 42 Gear Street last year, which I will be attending again this year. And he brought that amp to Gear Street. We played it at the show, and he was happy to build one for me. He actually sent me baby pictures as this was being built,
Wow.
and shipped it to me from Germany. And Mario is just such an amazing guy. I love him dearly. And I these 2 amps specifically, I mean, I get them in as many videos as I can. I'm going to bring them back to do full features again. I've got some plans next coming up with the Evo amp. And then, but these 2 up here, the Wongs, pronounced Wongs, people. Let's get your head out of the gutter. Wongs is actually a boutique. Now, these are made in China. I know you're surprised, but and they look like takeout boxes because I requested red Tolex. But Wong's is actually not. They don't mass produce amplifiers. It was actually the company started to service the local music scene, and then word got out, I guess, about the amps because they are a little more budget friendly, but they're not cheap amps. They use good quality parts. And this one is the HD30. It's a SLO circuit. And this one is the VT15. It's a JCM 800 circuit. Oh, by the way, I should mention, I glossed over this one. The Tube Workshop. This is the Lulis. Uwe Lulis is the guitar player for the band Accept.
Oh, wow.
Remember Balls to the Wall? Balls to the Wall?
Yeah, of course.
Well, he was in Gravedigger, and then he joined Accept about 10 years ago.
Yep.
So that's his signature amp. His sound was a JCM 800 with a Boss OD1 in the front. So this has an OD circuit in it, and it also has a JTM mode. So you have the JCM 800 style, but then you can flip a switch and be like a JTM 45 kind of sound. So really versatile amplifier. And then so back to the Wongs, you got an SLO circuit, and then you got a small 15-watt JCM 800 circuit. And 2 other amps that you can see in frame. Well, there's a Rev. We got a good Canadian builder. They sent me that for a video a couple years ago. That's the G20. This granddaddy is the Angle Powerball 2.
Look at that thing.
And
look at it.
Not in the frame, but I have to shout out Angle because they sent me their 4x12 double XL cabinet. It's in another room. I finally got to move it out of the room, and I can record properly. So it's about 30 feet from here. I got it all baffled in and covered in blankets. I got a couple of mics sitting there and a long speaker cable, so I can connect any of these amps to the speaker that's in the other room. And then the mics come back in here, and I've got a Neve style, like the Warm Audio preamp here with EQ. It's a WA273 EQ. So I have full control here. And then off camera, you can't really see it behind your QR code. There's the EVH 5150 Iconic. And I've got a bunch of load boxes here. I used to record everything direct with load boxes, but I've now back to doing mostly cabs when possible. So yeah. And then what you can't, so the Evo Amp Central from Red 7, great load box. And I should mention React IR, Saint Rock, that's guys from Ukraine, so we got to support those guys. Great little load box called the React IR. And what you don't see, there's a lot of modelers in this room too. I've got the Fractal FM9, I got a Quad Cortex, I got a Line 6 Helix, I have Tonex, I've got the Nano Cortex. So I dabble. I do have the ultimate hybrid setup here. So
I'm interested in your, I think I know what the answer is going to be, on your take on modelers and this new world we're in. I'll just say quickly, I remember when IK Multimedia sent me one of these Tonex pedals, and if I could fuck you, I would. But this thing is insane.
Right there. It says input. That's where you would do it.
Yeah, right. I think it's a bit small. But it's an amazing technology. I mean, I was saying to somebody the other day, my first band, both guitarists in our band had a orange distortion pedal and a metal zone with a icy pop stick over the top of it. So when you click, both of them click together. And we thought that was like, fuck, man, we've fucking hit the jackpot of metal tones. No, today is just to carry around a rig in even something like this big, to carry a rig inside of that. Where do we go from here, Dan? Where does the technology go after this?
Well, it's, you were saying, I was thinking about my first amplifier. I should mention, I forgot to mention, I'm just throwing that in, the JCM 900.
Of course, we've all had one.
But where does it go from here? I'm worried that tone has become too sterile, because I don't play live, so I can't really, it's easy for me to say, don't be such a wimp, bring a real tube amp to the club. But, the clubs are demanding silent stages these days, from what I'm told.
It's true.
So everyone's got in-ears, and they're running off modelers and things like that, because it's just, it's too easy. It's easier to mix. It's more club friendly, and I get it. I do get it. But there's guys that, if they're playing in rooms that are large enough, or if the sound guy is willing, still bringing out amps to gigs. Where's it going? The romantic in me hopes that everyone's going to realize that the old way is better, and I know that's not going to happen. But I hope on some level that there will be appreciation, because a lot of these guitar players that are growing up using modelers, because they're more accessible. And when I use the word accessible, I mean, some of them are cheaper. Okay, a Fractal FM9 is not cheap, but you could, for $200-$300, you can get something that sounds decent these days, right? You can go play a gig with it. You just said the Tonex One, like, what's that thing worth? A couple $100 maybe?
Yeah.
Okay, that's not an all-in-one, but I'm looking at like the Nano Cortex, for example. I mean, you've got all you can model your own amp, right? Neural amp captures, plus they've got effects in here. You could do a full gig with this thing.
Yeah.
Just take front of house straight from here, and the Quad Cortex is too big for you, But I hope guitar players that are growing up in this age, that are learning on these, will get sort of develop a curiosity for the real amps, because, and I don't want to get into the whole amp versus modeler debate, but to me, it's like, do you want to drive a nice fine automobile or play a video game, simulating one? Like, they both have the thrill. They both give you some sort of satisfaction. Playing a tube amp into a real speaker cabinet in the room, when you shake the foundation, the power that you feel coming out of that, you just can't simulate that on a digital pedal.
Yeah.
And it'd be a shame if you were a lifelong guitar player and you never got to experience that. I get it. That my 412 angle cabinet is 127 pounds. Okay, I'm not schlepping that to a gig with me. If I was, I wouldn't take that. So I get it, but the thrill of playing it is second to none, and digital cannot simulate that. Well, it could, but with a lot of expensive hardware, right? It just, you can't put your headphones in and feel like you're playing a 4x12 oversized cabinet, right? So I hope that guitar players growing up in this age that are using the Tonex and um, fractals or Line 6, whatever, are going to become curious and want to know, well, what is it like to do it for real? And that amps will survive in that world, because I think it's important, because when you go straight to a modeler, you're actually skipping a step. You're gaining convenience and you're gaining access to amps most people will never be able to afford. And that's
Yeah.
great. And I enjoy it. I have them here. But you're also skipping a step and understanding the relationship between your fingers, the guitar and the amp and the speaker, and how pedals can push your amp, and how the environment affects the sounds that you're creating. Like when I have a speaker cabinet here in the room and I want to record it, I can't. I can hear it because I'm here the speaker, but I need to hear that cabinet through a microphone into my speaker monitors, and so I can hear it sitting in the track. So that's an experience. With a modeler, I don't have to worry about that. I just take the XLR out from my fractal or whatever, pop it through into my, it is an interface. So I just take a USB out.
Everything's an
And
interface now,
exactly. It's amazing, right? But I know how to do it. And I do it all the time. I record real amps for most of my demos, and I record it through my fractal because I use it for signal routing and as my audio interface. So and if I am doing DI recording with a load box, which I'm not doing as much these days, but if I do, then I'll host my cab IRs in the fractal. So it's a great signal routing tool, and it has amazing effects. So it's a good hybrid approach. But again, I've done it both ways. So I hope, long answer to your question, but I hope, where's it going to go? For those who survive in the industry and get to do it as a career, I hope those who never got to play real amps will get curious and will want to, integrate some real amps into their workflow, even at least at the recording stage, because there's nothing. And actually, I can tell you firsthand, a friend of mine was here. He's actually going to be in my next video, and he plays modelers. He's played tube amps before, but in recent years, he's played a Boss Katana, and he just got himself a Line 6 Helix. And so before he came, I set up the angle into the 412 XXL. I had it all mic'd up, and I had it coming into my system. And I didn't tell him what was hooked up. I said, here, I want you to play something. I want you to feel this. He had no idea what was hooked up. And he just hit a chord. He goes, holy shit, that feels so good. What is that? It could have been anything at that point. I could have hooked up the fractal and just turned up my speaker monitors, but he actually, the way he reacted, like he knew it was something different. And I said, you're playing through that angle through a massive cabinet. And I showed him the cabinet. He was like, holy shit. Because you have to go there, you got to peel all the layers and look underneath, see what's in there. And he was like, and he said, man, that sound. I said, that's what a real amp does. It's not the same. It's not the same. So.
And the other thing with modeling, you need people to have amps to do captures. So,
that's it.
I bought one of these when they were in production, Dan. This is a positive grid Spark amp.
Yeah.
Now, the idea is great. And I paid for it in advance, my own money, and I was on the waiting list for way too long. And when I got it, man, there's so much bass in it. It's just horrible. But I've worked out a way to fix it. So I took off the front and I stuck, because there's two speakers in it. And so I stuck a T-shirt in between the two speakers and just sat it in there. Ever since, no more bass. It sounds so much better. And I wrote to them and said, when you release the Spark 2, can you put a T-shirt in there?
Put a T-shirt. Preferably your T-shirt.
I didn't hear back from them, so I don't know if the new one's been fixed. I hope it has, because it's very annoying. It's way too bassy. But, I mean, it's so small and compact. And again, it's an interface as well. Everything's an interface these days. So
I have the more, I think it's the SD 10 or 2 or something. It's just up camera here. Again, it's a little portable speaker. It's literally just behind this guitar neck here. Actually, right behind me, this guy right here, you can't really see it, but this is Black Starr. This is the IDX 50. This is a digital amp. They call it the DSP modeling amplifier. And it's got a bunch of Black Starr amp models, and it's not like, a modeler where you have Marshalls and Mesa Boogies and that kind of thing. So it's sort of a bunch of different channels. You've got effects, you've got the cab rig built inside. So you've got a 12-inch speaker, but it's also, as you say, everything's an interface. So it's an interface that you can roll into your recording. And it's, it's inexpensive, and it's a great little amplifier, and I kind of like. I don't want to get divulged too much because it's kind of what I'm talking about. I'm literally shooting the video. Like when you see the video come out, you'll see these close. But I I find with this amp because it's designed like an amplifier, as opposed to designed like a modeler where you have 300 amps. You know, I'm looking at my Fractal FM9. I think there's 300 different amps in there, right? Ask me how many I've used, right? So I like the fact that it's a bit simpler in that it's just an amp with like 7 channels, and then it has effects, and you can hook it up to your computer and build your presets, or you can do it on board. So a lot of different ideas floating around. So but it's nicely designed, and hopefully it will give a young player something that feels more like a real amplifier. And then maybe a few years from now, he's like, hey, I wonder, hey, Black Starr actually makes tube amps too. Maybe let me try one of those next, right? So I hope that's the path. There's room. The digital's here to stay. I love digital technology. This studio wouldn't be possible without it. But we need tube amps because they're just awesome. They're just truly awesome.
It feels like guitar stuff is safe. It just, I don't know, like everything else around, like, we know drummers, you know, there's E-kits. I've got an E-kit right here. I love my E-kit. Some drummers are using them live. I think, you know, I've seen you do, and so many people do these new guitars with the electronics and speakers in them. And I don't know, I've tried a couple of them. I don't know. I don't think they're going to replace a real guitar.
No. But
way.
I've said, like in the videos, like every time I just finished the third one for NU Music, right? Their Next G2. And I said they're defining a new category of guitar. It's not a, you know, it's a form factor of an acoustic guitar, but obviously it does a lot of things that an acoustic guitar never would. And, you know, it certainly serves a purpose if you're traveling, practicing for sure. I mean, I have tons of these, like Donner. I've got like 5 of their travel guitars. A few of them have the computers built in. I've got 3 of the NU ones now. There's a lot of them here. Do I play them all the time? No, but a couple of them I should pick them up. You know, if I'm just sitting on the couch or something, it's, you know, it's fun, you know, but it's not going to replace my Balaguer or my Gibson or my Phoenix sitting right over here. You know, it's just a different category.
They still feel like guitars to me. But you're absolutely right. They are made super high quality. I mean, they're amazing. The technology's amazing to see. Let's play another track. I was going to close with this track with more AIU, but because we found another one of your tracks, I think I'll close with that one, even though there's no video, but we'll do that. So this is Helix Jam. Let's play this and we'll come back and get talking about so much more. We've got 20 minutes to go. Let's Oge, folks. You ready? I'm going to go bang.
No, it's funny hearing that out of context.
Yeah,
I
right.
was listening to the song, people, and it's funny, maybe I should just leave it there because we're just listening to a piece of music, but that video was about my first experience with the Helix. I was late into the Helix game, and admittedly, Yamaha Canada actually hooked me up with a Helix, so thank you to Yamaha Canada. So I did a video on, I did a couple different videos, but I think that one I was talking about the signal routing options, and um, the main guitar parts were recorded with a real amp. I believe it was the Rev G20 that was through a loop in the Helix. And then the dun, 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 that little guitar loop thing, that was your favorite pedal, the Tone X, was actually looped into the Helix into a block. So I was showing how you could introduce third-party pedals or even third-party amp sim pedals into the Helix. So if you've got a tone, because the Line 6 Helix doesn't do captures, the new Stadium will
Right.
eventually, but the current Helix doesn't. So I was saying, hey, you could, this is a hack. You can capture it with Tone X, run it through a loop on the Helix, and then bring your amp captures into the Helix, doing it that way. So listening to the different tones, you had a real amp doing the main part, and then you had Tone X doing sort of the secondary part. And then the guitar solo was also probably, I believe, a real amp. I'm assuming there may have been an amp model in there too somewhere. I can't remember, but that was the purpose of that song, was to demonstrate bringing in outside tones and using the Line 6 Helix as sort of your routing device. So
Speaking of
if
like
it, yeah.
companies who, just for people who want to start maybe, doing this kind of thing on YouTube, when I started out, I was like, man, how do you get in contact with these companies? How do you like create like a just email them?
Yeah, well, it's a question I actually get because I'm kind of at, I call it the ugly duckling stage. I have made inroads in terms of relationships with companies. The best advice that I would give anyone is that don't get into that too early,
Yep.
because I know the lure of free stuff. It's intoxicating when you get your first free plugin kind of thing, but plugins is a good way to start,
Yeah. Yep.
because it's free currency for the plugin developers. It doesn't cost them anything to give you a license. So when I started and I was looking to get some product, I reached out. I remember I reached out to a couple of guitar companies. There's a company called Audio Assault. I will mention them. I think they're based in Mexico, and they were one of the first companies that responded to me, and they sent me some of their plugins and stuff, and I featured them a few times, and I brought them in a couple times. I still get their emails. I haven't been in touch with them for a while, but they were very nice and kind and allowed me. So that's always a good place to start. But in terms of like the real shit, um,
Yeah.
for me, it started with the dock controllers. I bought a dock controller. It was an Icon, the original QCon, and then I made a video about it and I sent it to Icon, and they really appreciated the effort. And then when they had the new, that year was when the G2, the Icon Pro G2 came out. So they actually hooked me up with that, and then they sent me an extender. Those videos performed really well. Like, I'm talking hundreds of thousands of views easily. And so they kept feeding me. And then, but really, in terms of like guitar gear, companies generally find you, right?
Yeah.
When they want to feature their gear on your channel, they find you. If they haven't reached, now I will say, and I want to mention them again because they're like the most awesome people there, and I don't know if they'll ever see this, but Balaguer, a friend of mine, did a video on this guitar. He has a blue one. My friend John Simons from Sonic Drive Studio, and I didn't even ask him for a contact, because it's one thing I actually don't do. People work hard to get contacts, and we don't know how these companies will react if you give out their emails.
Sure.
But so I sent a cold email through their website, and I got a response from the head of operations and the owner, and they told me they watched my channel, and within a few weeks, this thing was here. So emails definitely pay off, but I think you have to think about um, value. Are you going to bring value to uh, that company? Like these amplifiers here, when Rob from Evo, I contacted him through an amp guy had found me, and he connected me to Rob. We started talking. He's a big Rush fan too. We just got to talking, and then he said he was gonna, I didn't ask him for an amp. I wouldn't dare. I mean, these amps are not cheap, right?
Yeah.
And he just said, let's do this. And I was so like moved that he wanted to send me something so valuable. I've literally put that amp in like 7 or 8 videos already. And how many YouTubers are gonna do that? right? I do that
Yeah.
because, same thing with Tube Workshop. Angle, when Angle sent me up with that cabinet, I put it in as many videos as I can. That's what they want, right? So you have to be able to give value back. And
Yep.
if you just can't deliver that value yet, and value is eyeballs, right?
Yep. Yep.
If you can't get that gear in front of an audience, there's no value for those brands to send you anything. And I would say, don't burn that bridge. Save it. Reach out. Hey, I just want to let you know I exist. Don't want anything from you. I'm going to work hard this year. You're on my list. Maybe one day we can work together. Not ready yet. That's okay. But don't expect someone to. I've had people say, hey, they've got, 500 subs, and they say, hey, can I call? I'd like to get a free amp. I said, why would someone give you something worth $1,000, $2,000 for, but plugins is a great place to start because there's no cost. I
Yeah.
did a lot of plugin reviews at the beginning, and it's funny now. I just don't anymore unless there's a reason to, or if it's sponsored or something. I haven't done many plugins. I actually have one on my list of something that I really want to do. Just have to work it into the schedule. So yeah, plugins a good place to start, but don't overvalue your worth to these companies because if somehow you convince them and you don't give them the value back, it'll probably be the last time you ever work with them.
So true.
So yeah.
Yeah, that's how I started with apps here, and a few companies then started doing some hardware. And the thing is, I think you got to be able to knock back some stuff too. Like that shows a lot of, like I got offered some monitors, and everyone else I know was doing the monitors, and I just bought a pair of monitors, and for me it was like, well, I can do the show, but then everybody's going to see my studio every day and see I'm not using them, and that's not what.
Yeah.
You need to have them there and use them again, and continued love jobs afterwards. That's what I think it is. It's the continuing to bring it back for a surprise role. Remember this? That they love it. But don't be afraid, folks. You can only get knocked back too. That's the thing.
Yeah, but just be realistic and
course.
don't expect, if you can't deliver the value that the companies want.
Yep.
There's nothing wrong in being aggressive and reaching out to people, but be realistic too. Like I said, if you don't feel like, what, my channel's not really worth a $3,000 tube amp just yet, but I want to get on your radar and say, hey, listen, I just wanted to reach out to you. I'm not asking for anything. I'm going to give you guys a mention. I'm going to rent one locally or something and do a video about it. That's always a good thing to do. Is you can borrow one and get on the company's radar by doing a video about their products. Because I actually did that. I have a relationship with the largest retailer in Canada. So I got to a point where I would just call them up. Hey, I want to do a video. And no problem. I can go to any location. They would set me up, loan me the gear. And I would represent them, professionally. And I would give them a shout out. I would give information and they appreciated that. And then sometimes the companies like Boss, that's how I got into Boss. They saw a video that I did with a collaboration with this retailer. So they actually emailed or called the retailer and said, hey, we're looking to get hold of Dan, the Lonely Rocker. We've got a new product we'd like to send to him. So they emailed me, hey, could we give him your information? I said, it's Boss, of course you can. So next thing you know, I did a couple of videos with Boss. So they find you when they want to work with you, right?
Absolutely, 100%. Ideas. How do you coming up with ideas for your shows? Do you get stuck? Do you have a method to get out of a rut? How do you rack your brain?
Well, it's funny because I at certain points in my channel, I remember I would finish a video and I would have nothing in queue, and I was like, "Oh shit, what am I going to do next?" Right? That doesn't happen anymore. I just got through a stretch, and actually, I can be fully transparent. We have a very nice little audience here. I've been going through some struggles as of late. Views on YouTube have been a bit challenge for me lately. Part of the reason I think is I got into this string of sponsored videos. So, I'm at a point now where companies will sponsor me now. I need to eat, people. I don't, do a lot of live streams and, I have to depend on these long form content that I make. I spend days sometimes on them. And somehow I got through this longest stretch of videos that were sponsored. We talk about Enya Music, Moore and their little mini amps and stuff. The AI video one was sponsored. But it just felt like there was this endless stream of products coming in, and that's good in terms of content, but that was kind of not great for good topics because I got into a bit of a lull. The views have been really challenging lately. So I'm finally through it. I am working on this Black Star video, but I have tons of ideas, and whenever I get an idea, I do try to write it down somewhere, and then because I've got like 5 or 6 topics right now that I want to cover. And one thing that is going to make it easier, and this is something that I don't think I've done well on my channel, is follow-ups.
Right.
If you're scrolling through my you'll just see it's like endless topics, and there's not necessarily a theme per se. There's a few themes. So for example, I've been talking about modelers. I did a video when the Boss GX10 came out. That video did really, really well. My Boss ME90 video has done like almost 90,000 views, right? And I've never done a follow-up on it, which is ridiculous, right? So I have endless possibilities now with videos that I've already covered to maybe get into the device a bit more. Tonex, I can do capture videos and feature an amplifier. I have a whole Tonex cart that I built. I call it the Tonex cart. It's a standalone capture station just off camera here. So that's something that's been in the pipeline. So that's where my ideas now are coming from, previous ideas, and looking at themes that I could sort of, one video should turn into 10 videos easily, and then I think that's a good way maybe to get some more loyal viewers. And I think that's one problem that I've had on my channel, that maybe I've been a little bit too, like, I've had lots of ideas, lots of different topics, lots of different products, but none of them have really fallen into a theme. And so I'm getting a viewer for that video, getting viewers for that video, but I don't feel like a collective following that we're moving through this together. I felt that a bit more a little while ago. So that's something that I'm going to really try to work on over the next few months, is to build off topics I've already covered that have been done well, and maybe get deeper into them. Less production, little tutorial based, more information maybe, and then build on some themes. And then if something new comes in the door, well, I know they keep coming, right? So those are going to come in anyways, right? So I think if you, I mean, I don't know if I really answered the question, but I think if you're going to do this, like, you have to know that you've got a lot in the tank, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
There's a lot to talk about in the guitar industry, and there's not necessarily everyone wants to hear it. My wife doesn't want to hear it, but there's a lot to talk about. The question is, are there people there to listen to you, right? And you have to feel like you've got a lot to offer. You've got a lot to draw from, sorry, is the word I'm looking for. If you're running out of ideas, okay, maybe you hit a dry patch. It's okay. Do a rant video, get over it.
They come.
then,
it happens, it's like everything. It's and like Pete John says it all the time. YouTube, we're working on borrowed ground. We're renting a space, and we can only control what we put out. We can't control what they're changing every week, it seems. Like, even this week alone, like, I know this seems like such a small thing, but on my desktop, I watch YouTube all day. And for some fucking reason, they've moved the volume from the left-hand side over to the right-hand side. And it must be
really?
It must be a beta thing they're rolling out on the desktop. And all week, it's been doing my head in, because I'm muscle memory, And then yesterday, I logged in, and they've moved it back. I'm like,
oh, wow.
Can they hear me yelling at the TV? Is that what's going on? But they're changing the rules so much, and all this AI stuff. They announced new stuff saying they're going to get rid of slop and all this, and that's a great step in the right direction to monetize. But then at the same time, Dan, in their shorts now, if you hit plus on YouTube, this is so fucking weird. You can now text prompt on shorts and type in a whole prompt of a video and they've added this new thing where you can take a photo outside and upload it straight to shorts, and it'll animate it and turn it into a moving. And it's like, so what message are they sending us? Like, they're going to get rid of slop, but they want you to make slop as a creator. I'm so confused. I really.
Well, one thing I can say to that, and this is coming from someone that's had some challenges lately, is that at the end of the day, it's about people, right? And
Yep.
I'm looking at the chat here. By the way, I want to mention Doug Kidder. He'd be so mad if I didn't say hi. But that's someone, like, names people that have been hanging around for some time, right? And like, it's familiar. And I'm going to use Doug as an example. We didn't know each other before my YouTube channel, and we have little chats in the background now and stuff. And he also found me through the live streams with Mike, right? These are people, right, that appreciate what you do. And all the slop, as you call it, will only go so far, right? Because if we don't have that human connection, I think we'll just by nature will lose interest, right? So again, I don't know if I'm being a romantic here, but it's just not interesting. And I think we connect with real emotion, at some point, and I think that's the difference. So
Yeah,
I don't know where I was going with it.
personalities too. I mean, that's the thing. A lot of channels do okay without a lot of subscribers due to just their personality is enough to keep people interested,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And that's something that AI can't replicate. They just can't do it.
By the way, the point I was actually wanted to
Yes.
make there is that, channels that are smaller or channels that are struggling, we often complain about the algorithm. The algorithm doesn't like me, right? And I can't believe I'm quoting Mr. Beast, but someone quoted him so in a video, but it's still attributed to Mr. Beast. And he said, if you ever blame the algorithm or you're referencing the algorithm, change the word algorithm to audience.
Right.
And if something's not working, it's not because the algorithm doesn't like you, it's because the audience is not buying it, right? And we have to accept that. If we believe it's the algorithm, then we're going to spend our days trying to trick the algorithm by making a better thumbnail, right? Those are important, right? But ultimately it's people that are watching that video. The analytics are coming from human interaction.
For
So
now.
if we're going to continually blame the algorithm, then we're skipping something extremely important, is that our content is not resonating with the audience, because it does go out. It does feel like it does. Sometimes it doesn't. I see it goes up and it, like, oh, the algorithm just turned off the tap.
Yeah.
Well, no. Well, the retention sucked and you weren't getting a lot of comments, so people weren't engaging with the content. So the algorithm figured people didn't like the video, so they stopped promoting it. So I actually took that advice to heart, and I'm really looking at that, saying, well, okay, I love that video, but not enough people did. At least the first batch that saw it didn't feel the same way as I did, and the video didn't do well. So and this is all about human interaction. YouTube has to be automated because they have billions of views every day, so they couldn't possibly manage it manually. So they need an algorithm to distribute all this content. But ultimately, it's people that are watching, and the people are going to determine whether it's good or not. And we have to listen to that and be honest with ourselves, right?
Yeah, and if people are watching slop, they're probably not going to watch you anyway. Like that's the thing. They love slop, and that's cool, And look, I wouldn't change it. I love doing this. I love YouTube. I think YouTube. I had a YouTube account since 2007, just putting my music up there. Nobody gave a shit for years, and it wasn't again until the pandemic when I started actually doing this. People gave a shit because music, no one cares. But I love this. I think it's got a long way to go. YouTube, as long as they remember that there's people here, and it doesn't go down the AI path too much. We are out of time, and there's so much more we could have covered today. Absolutely.
We didn't even talk about the apps. That's the whole point of this.
Well, no. Well, the channel it's always been called Jade Starr, and apps, I put it in there just as if we're running low on story, Right. So, I mean, the apps are apps. It's all about the music at the end of the day. If you can make music or not, I say this all the time. Even when I'm doing a show on an app, it's like I always say at the end, apps aren't Pokemon. You don't need to collect them all. Like, you can open any door and there's a chorus, there's a delay, there's a compressor. If you can't make music in that door, then you should become a carpenter. I don't know.
Well, it's funny. Everything everyone has seen and experienced today is that there's a remarkably small amount of apps or software that I actually use to create all of that. So we don't need a lot. We just need the ones that work for us.
Absolutely. That's what it's all about. So what's next? What have you got planned? Are you going on a trip? What's going on for you in the future?
I mentioned 42 Gear Street, Henning Pauli, who's based in Germany. I went last year. So that's he hand picks 25 YouTubers to come hang out in his complex. He owns a couple of properties and he's got studios in there. If you watch his YouTube channel, he's putting out videos virtually every day, multiple cameras. He's got a very sophisticated setup. So he brings in a bunch of YouTubers and he brings in a bunch of brands. We hang out for 4 days and we shoot videos. We can, Ibanez is going to be there. You mentioned IK Multimedia. They were there last year. They're going to be there this year. Tube Workshop's going to be there. I don't know if you can see. Oh, you can't see it off camera. I'm wearing the shirt. Creative Devices. My good friend Kagan got these great laptops. He's going to be there, so we all get to hang out. We shoot videos, and then they send us the footage, and we distribute them through our own YouTube channels. And then so that's in August, end of August, and end of September. I'm actually heading back to Germany for a guitar summit in Mannheim. So 2 trips to Germany between August and September, and then they get to hang out with a bunch of my YouTube friends, and that's gonna be a lot of fun. And then videos, Black Starr video coming out next, and I've got some other goodies in the pipeline.
Awesome stuff, folks. You know the drill. In the descriptions, all the places to go to hook up with Dan. Go and subscribe and go check out his videos, because you'll learn stuff, you'll have a good time, you'll have a bloody good laugh as well too. That's what I look forward to as well. A bit of a cheeky laugh, because you got to have a bit of fun for all the technical jargon and stuff. So last question I ask everybody before we play this last track is, if somebody was considering being creative, maybe starting a band or a YouTube channel, when would be the best time for them to start, Dan?
When, as an age? Or time of day? Like
it's up to you. It's an open question. There's no wrong answer.
You know what? There's no, and then I'll answer. There's no wrong time. If you get the urge to make music, just do it, because it's a lot of fun.
Fuck yeah, just do it, bitches. Let's get it on the road. So this is the track that you pointed out to me. So this is called "I Want Out." You want to tell us about this before we slam it?
Yeah, I wrote this song for a plugin review. Funny enough, Fuse Audio Labs makes some cool plugins, and they have these guitar pedal plugins. Anyway, so Sturla, who's from Norway, the drummer, when I found him, he picked the track. He said, he just wanted to play drums on it, but I ended up re-recording everything because I wanted to keep up with him, because he's an awesome drummer, as you will see on this track. So this is a real band with me playing bass and guitar, Sturla on drums, and it was a lot of fun to do that. And he pushed me with the mix too. So
awesome stuff. Please stay on the line so I can say goodbye to you at the end of the show. And thank you, everybody, for hanging out in the live stream today. You all rock. You're fantastic. We love you.
Thank you. Hey, everybody who hung around all this time. And Thomas has been putting out all the links. Thank you, Thomas. And,
he's a god,
sorry,
Thomas.
I haven't answered or responded to too many of the chat is a little bit out of my periphery here. But I've been glancing. So thanks to everyone who's hung out today. And
if you're watching on the replay, folks, hit the like. And if you're here, hit the like, do the subscribe, all the, the jargon, the YouTube stuff. And I want to, of course, thank DistroKid for sponsoring yet another show. Folks, next week we're doing a Creator Rewind show where we're bringing back one of our old guests. And I can tell you now who it is. Her name's Capsulam, and we're going to have her back on. She's made a heap of new songs since the last time we had her on. She's now got a series where she walks around Sweden, showing you around Sweden. She's awesome, so I can't wait for that. Tomorrow is the Music for Life album launch, where we get people to put in their songs to raise money for children with cancer for the US this time around. And what are we doing on Saturday? I think we're doing the Creative Hour, where in 1 hour, live on stream, I have to make a bit tune. I have to make an arcade song in 50 minutes in front of you all live, or you throw stones at me. So that's what's coming up here on the channel. I think the rant this week is going to be about songwriting. I'm not sure. We'll work it out. All right, let's do it. Let's get this track rocking and rolling. Remember, folks, do the things that make you happy. Mistakes make you better, and we'll all rise together. This is I Want Out by Dan the Lonely Rocker. Let's Oge!